Hey folks, and Happy New Year! I am currently filming at my parents' home in my dad's office. I am back for the holidays, and I wanted to give you an update of what's in my bag, what equipment I'm using as of January 2022. I thought this would be a good opportunity to show you my new kit, but also to clear up some misunderstandings about what my moves have been over the years. When I was testing out the Z9 recently and then went on to buy one, I had a lot of people commenting, oh, that Nikon guy is back, and others saying, you abandoned the brand and now you've come back. And it's kind of incorrect. So let me give you a quick little history. So I was an Olympus shooter. Once I moved to digital, I was shooting with Olympus and what was it, Chinon or something, back in the film days, as well as a Nikon FE. I went into the Olympus system for a few years, got to what was the limit of those systems at the time, and there were some things that just didn't work for me. The Nikon D200 was announced, and I just fell in love with it once I got to feel it and see the ergonomics. And since then, I went through pretty much the higher end DX crop cameras, and then the flagship and full frame cameras, all the way up to the Nikon D5. I owned a whole lot of them. You would have seen them here on the channel. Through 2020, my main cameras were a pair of D850s. I filmed with a variety of different things, and at that time I picked up an A7S III because there was nothing in the Nikon range that would do 4K 120 slow-mo. Something that I use a lot on my video productions for client work, but also for my courses when I'm doing a tutorial for learn.macgranger.com or artnudeportraiture.com. Getting slow-mo footage is a great way to be able to create montages and to get shots that you can then retime to the length that you need them to be. So I wanted high-quality internal 4K 120. That's why I got the A7S III. Then in August 2020, I made the video Goodbye Nikon, where I was selling off all of my DSLR equipment. I tried to make it as clear and straightforward there, but I understand the headline Goodbye could have, been all that some people watched or read. And the reasoning for that was we were in lockdown. I was living in New York City. I wasn't able to travel, do my normal kind of shooting. So having a pair of D850s, which according to my normal gear schedule, I would have been updating in a few months' time anyway, whilst the market was still strong for DSLR, it seemed like a perfect opportunity to sell that equipment. I sold it all off to KEH Camera in one big lot, and I can't tell you how much time and hassle that saved, having tried to sell one or two Primo lenses on eBay or different places, and the amount of fees they take, and then all of the headaches of people, wanting to lowball you or not paying or sending things back. Total pain in the butt. So selling it off in one big lot really worked for me. KEH are also sponsors of this video. Then over the next couple of months, I was, in a very fortunate position, still in lockdown. I was able to loan in, mostly from B&H Photo, all of the different mirrorless cameras that were on the market and test out what was going to do it for me. The couple of the things that I had been holding out from mirrorless were now available, so it was double good timing to reconsider my move to mirrorless. After some time, I decided that Nikon was still the way for me. I bought in two Z7, then a pair of Z7 Mark IIs, and I was using those for my stills, the A7S III as primary video camera, and a Nikon when I needed it as a secondary video camera, and that was working great. Fast forward a year and the Z9 is on the horizon. I'd had a good chance to test it out, so I actually sold off one of my Z7 IIs, and I just recently sold off my A7S III as, again, a complete kit with all of the batteries and the Tamron lenses I had for it and the Zeiss Bartas lens. So now I am 100% in on Nikon Z system. Now, I just have to clarify this. For those of you who are watching and, actually pay attention to the content, you would know this, but for those who just maybe have read it on online rumors or whatever, I am not paid by Nikon. I have never been paid by Nikon. I have never done a campaign for them. I've never been an ambassador. I've never been a trainer. None of that stuff. So the Nikon gear that I have, I buy. I'm very lucky that I am able to loan things to test out, to review to you guys, and that's thanks to you guys. They only do that because they have an audience, not because I'm some lucky or special guy that they want to throw their hat in with. And to be honest, I would love to have more Canon and Fuji content on my channel, but in Australia, America, and Hong Kong, Canon don't return my emails, never loan me equipment, never invited me to an event. Fuji in Hong Kong were being quite helpful. Sony in America were, really outgoing in how they engage with people like me, so I had great access. But in Hong Kong, again, I just get no responses to my emails. So that's why you see even more Nikon content. One, I'm in the system, so I know it really well, so I can confidently present it. And two, I have great access. They don't pay me, they don't have feedback on my videos, they don't tell me what to say or do or any of that kind of stuff. The opinions you see on this channel are my own. If I have a sponsor, if I've been paid, I disclose that. This video is brought to you by KEH Camera. I've been shooting with them and working with them for years now. It's a great place to buy and sell, and if you're looking to make a big move, definitely consider them. You can get a quote. You send it off to them, they'll check your gear. If it matches the condition they were expecting, they just pay you. If it's not the condition, they'll offer you a different quote, and then you have the option to take it or not. If not, they'll return it to you. It will have been cleaned for you, and there's no harm, no foul. But to be able to do it all in one transaction is great. You can also, of course, just sell single lenses or buy individual pieces of equipment, whether it's cutting edge or more vintage stuff. There's codes below you can use to get 5% off on the buy or sell side. Now, let's dig into my bag. This will show you what is on, in my bag for this trip to Australia. I'm doing road trips and shooting wildlife, a few portraits, and I'll tell you what else I still have back in my dehumidifier in Hong Kong. So, first off, no surprise, Z9. My main stills camera now, and with the tripod plate, it probably doesn't want to sit terribly evenly. There we go, Z9. Phenomenal camera. For what I'm shooting, I absolutely love it. And I'm also filming with Z9 and the 24-70 f4. I know for a lot of people 8K is irrelevant, but it does allow me to do this and take a 4K grab out of an 8K frame and maintain quality. So for me, 8K has great advantages, and the reason that this enabled me to sell off the Sony is it has even better 4K 120 with longer recording, well, no recording limits, using all the same batteries, cards, accessories as what I'm using for stills, so I don't need to take two lens kits, two sets of batteries, two sets of chargers, two sets of cards along with me. And the cards that this guy uses are far faster than what the other cameras are using, so that's the main reason why. I also have a Z6 Mark II. Now this one is actually still on loan. I don't own this one. I do have a Z7 II that I still own back in Hong Kong, but because I'm traveling with Z9s this trip, I didn't need to bring that guy. So that's my bodies essentially. Two Z9s, a Z7 II, and a Z6 II. I may sell off the Z7 II later this year. In terms of lenses, I've raved about this one, the 51-2, absolutely stellar lens. It is big, it's heavy, but unlike a lot of big heavy lenses, it's not slow. It's so fast to focus. On the Z9, it's instant, and it's hard to say because Canon 51-2, the new, is also fantastic. But I think this is my favorite autofocus 50mm that I've ever used, just sublime. I also have the 24-70 f2.8. I have the f4 and the f2.8. That may seem redundant, but I use the f4 for video, where having, the background completely blurred out isn't such a big deal for me, but then I can be shooting stills on the 24-70 2.8 whilst filming with the f4. Same reason that I have the 51.8 for situations where it's walking around and I don't want to be carrying something quite so big and heavy. You can see the size difference there. Then the 51.8 is fantastic image quality and also great as a video option. I then have the 14-24. I held out on this one for a while, but it is just a phenomenal lens. It's an even better improvement over the f-mount one, which is already great. Love that you have better variety of filter options with this guy. Then, the 70-200. Canon, Nikon, Sony all make great 70-200s. Nikon have had so many great ones over the years. I've owned V1, V2, and the E version I did have as well. This is definitely optically the best, and with the new bodies is performing the best as well. I then have the 100-400, another fantastic lens. Let's make two rows here now. You can see not too different from the 70-200, great range. Yes, it's a 4.5 to 5.6, but 400 mil at 5.6, especially seeing this has nice closest focus capabilities, you do get a nice background. It is, however, if you have a busy background, it can be a bit swirly and distracting. If you have a simpler background, then it does get to be nice and creamy. I've given sample files from that one before, and actually pretty much all this gear. If you haven't checked it out already, at learn.artnudeportraiture.com and learn.mattgranger.com, I have dozens of sets of sample files that you can download and pixel peep. It's completely free. Just make an account and you can download them. I'll have links to all of that below. Then, that's actually all the lenses I have here. Not too many. The Atomos, I use that guy for recording the screen. I have a couple of other screens that I use just for monitoring, not actually for recording. Now, back at home on top of these, I have the 200mm f2, which was the only f-mount lens I kept when I sold all my gear. Still my favorite lens, and using, I don't even have that here, I do, the FTZ Mark II. My God, I couldn't believe it. Now, I'll say, I try to own my mistakes, and I don't know if this was a mistake. I really think it was a great strategic decision to sell my gear when I did, for a number of reasons. The market price for D850s has dropped. I'm now in a great position to be going into mirrorless, so that was all good. But what I failed at was I didn't envisage that they could ever get an FTC adapter to make the old f-mount lenses perform at 100% of their capability on the new bodies. And they did. The FTC 1 and now Mark II, by the way, it's just a form factor difference to make it easier to fit on with the vertical grip. The other one had a tripod foot at the bottom, which meant it was really hard to mount, or kind of impossible. If it's possible, no, it is. I've tested it side by side on the Z9 and the D6. The 200 f2 performs noticeably better with the Z9 via adapter, and I mean, how can I not hold on to that forever, being my favorite lens, and now it performs better than it did 3 or 4 years ago. I also sold off the 105 1.4. That's one that I wish I hadn't sold, because it too works even better via adapter on the Z9. Now, I'm just raving about this because this is the equipment that I have bought, that I use, that I can justify in terms of their return on investment, that I make my living with, that I support my family, that I pay my mortgage with, all of that stuff, not because I'm trying to get in the good graces of Nikon. You can see when I think I've done something wrong, I'm critical, but it just, the Z9 and the FTC2 works so well. If you're thinking about moving or, whatever, you might want to consider just selling your bodies and keeping your older lenses like the f-mount 24-70 and that kind of stuff, because they really do work fantastically via adapter. Then down the track, if you're in a position that you want to upgrade, the optics on the new one is even better than the old ones, then you could go to using native glass. But you don't have to all in one burst sell everything and rebuy everything. As daunting as a financial prospect that is, some people do it, but it's not necessary because that adapter really does allow so much. So what else do I have at home? I recently bought the 500mm f4 lens, and I absolutely love it. I have a couple of vintage lenses that I actually bought from KEH Camera, 50mm and 35mm, and a bunch of old Helios lenses, maybe two. And I still have a couple of M-mount Leica lenses that I don't use that much, if I'm perfectly honest, but occasionally I do. But I'm also looking to sell those off. So right now, as of January 2022, I am all in, put it all on black with Nikon Z system, and I'm incredibly happy with it. Now, at the end of the day, and this is an obvious thing, it comes down to what you shoot, how you shoot, and what your preference is. I don't think I would say, well, I can't say that this is better than the A1 or the R3 objectively, because they're different cameras, they suit different people, and at the end of the day, if you're a Sony shooter, the A1 as the pinnacle flagship camera, sports camera for them, is most likely a better option for you. If you're into the ecosystem, you have all of their stuff, and your hand just has that muscle memory for where everything is, the menus now make sense to you on Sony, then that's a great option for you. Same with Canon. Beautiful cameras that they're making now, stellar lenses as well. If you're in that ecosystem, use it, love it, feel 100% welcome on this channel. Even though I'm now all in on Nikon, I'm not planning to rename myself to that Nikon guy. Although, two quick things on that. One, I recently joined TikTok. Don't worry, I don't intend on joining in on the dances, but it is the biggest website in the world now, the biggest domain, surpass Google. So I do want to start to build an audience there, so please check out my QR code and follow me if you're over there. Why I used to be called that Nikon guy and why I'm not now, it was actually right around this time of year, 11 or 12 years ago, when I started the channel. I had a bag of Nikon F-mount equipment. I thought, why not? I'll call myself that Nikon guy. It's catchy. Nikon users will follow me. After a few years, I came to the realization with a business coach that unless my goal was to become a Nikon ambassador, which it wasn't, I wouldn't be able to speak freely then. And if I want to work with other brands, there's not really an upside to it, only a downside. You think of if you're a car reviewer and you call yourself that Mustang guy, even if you're reviewing all different cars, people may think you have an inherent bias and other brands may not want to work with you. I didn't want to get into that situation. But I can say in my heart, I'm absolutely a Nikon guy, and my kit reflects that now. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I hope I've made all of that clear. If you see online people saying that I'm a Nikon shill, or that I'm paid by them, or that I abandoned the brand and now I'm just crawling back now that they have a Z9. I actually don't mind the last one. It's not true. I sold my DSLR gear, as I said, evaluated the market, decided that Nikon mirrorless was for me, and then bought into it. It's a perfectly logical and transparent process. But if I were to have left and then the Z9 came out, I may have come back. So, whatever. But the part about being paid, that's just slander. It's not true. The closest I've ever come to something like that was I went to one Nikon organized event when the D5 was announced, where they took 6 or 7 people in the media industry over to Vegas for the launch, like Sony and other brands do all the time. And I had an expenses paid trip. But even on that trip, when the camera was launched and had a ridiculous 4K recording limit, I made a video while staying in the hotel room they had booked for me, telling you guys the truth of why I thought that was a bonehead move. So that's where we are. Love to hear any of your questions. If you're hearing that in the background, it's just rained here and the cicadas are all going off. I'm going to have a little update video for you soon about what's going on, because there's been a few kinks in the travel plans now that I'm over here in Australia. And if you are also in the Nikon Z system, you've probably heard me talk about it recently. I've put out an expert setup guide for Nikon Z cameras that focuses primarily on the Z9, goes into great depth on its new features, autofocus modes, all of that good stuff, and the entire menu system. But it goes through all of the different Z cameras and tells you the different customization options and what I recommend that you do first as an initial setup to customize it, and gives you some shortcuts to find out what are going to be the most valuable things for you to be able to program into custom buttons to make the most of it whilst you're in the field. So please check that one out. That is live, ready to stream or download. Thanks again to KH Camera for sponsoring this one. They're great, honest people. I'm very happy to be doing business with them. You can see those discount codes in the description below. That'll do it. Happy New Year. I'll see you guys soon.